Hello and welcome to another episode of the Clever Dev. Today we're going to explore the MUI DatePicker and DateTimePicker, pretty much the same thing. We're going to explore some of my favorite props and customizations through the props. We'll explore how to swap out some of the icons, and as you can see, we are going to customize it exactly how we want to. Stick around. Here we are again, and I have removed the styling and the props that I want to show off from the DatePicker and the DateTimePicker. So let's go into the code here, and I do have, as usual, quite a bit of default or setup code, you could say. Got all my imports and have some of my change handlers and things like that. That's not really the focus of the video, so I like to save some time and get all that set up. I will have a link to all this code to a post that has all this code in the video details, so if you want all this code, you can check that out. However, what I want to show you is some of the props in this desktop date picker, and then how to swap out icons in the date time picker, which those two components are very similar. I'm just showing a little bit from each one. And then also, you can see I've got some setup here for some customization. So interestingly, I'm not going to just directly use the SX prop, but rather pass it in to some of these props on the date time picker, so that the SX styling can trickle down to the appropriate composing components of the date time picker. So let's start with this desktop date picker up here. So there's two really cool props that I want to show off. Actually, before we get into that, I also want to call out that MUI just recently moved the imports from MUI Lab to MUI X date pickers. So if you're struggling with the imports, keep that in mind. I also had to install Day.js directly, and I didn't have to do that before, and that's just in the last couple months that they made that move, that MUI moved that, so just keep that in mind. So with that said, let's dive into the props here that I want to show off. So the first one is a really cool one called views. So let's look and see what we have here. We have the days and the years. Not seeing a way to get into the months by default. So let's see if we can change that. So I'm going to add this views prop, and it accepts an array, actually, an array of strings. So I'm going to change that to day and month. And you could see it looked like there was also a year value there that it would have accepted. Yeah, day, month, year. So anyway, I'm just going to swap it to day and month. Let's see what the difference is there. So now I drop that down. Cool. So instead of years, I get the option for months. So that's an important one. So the other one that I'm going to show just on this desktop date picker here is I am going to show a prop called literally show days outside current month. So what's important about that is you see that there's no days here, so I can't, when I'm looking at July 2022, and obviously today is July 27th, if you couldn't tell when I'm recording this. Anyway, I can't select days from the end of June or the beginning of August. However, that's the default. However, I can add show days outside current month, and it's just a Boolean, so don't need to do anything more than add it, and there you go. You probably saw that flash on there, that pop up on there. So now I can select those days from a previous month. So I personally like that setting, and I'm going to leave it as that. So there used to be another prop before they made the move to lab, and it was called Clearable, but it's gone. Would have added a little clear button at the bottom of this. Anyway, I mention it because it's possible that I have just missed that maybe it's still a potential prop that you can use, but that the name is slightly changed. If you look at the post that I wrote then, back when I wrote it in April of 2022, then that prop was available, so you'll see it there. But anyway, if they kept it, I don't know where it is. I kind of liked having it. It was a nice clear method for clearing out your date or time picker. So anyway, let's move on to the date picker here and hit the styling on that. So before we jump into the SX styling, I want to show you that you can pretty easily change out the icons. So I've imported a couple icons. I'm going to change, this will be done with this one. I'm going to move on to this one. I'm going to change this calendar icon here, and then I'm going to change these arrows. Why I'm going to do that? Just because. So, just to show it's possible. So anyway, interestingly, those are housed under this components prop. And then we can do our open picker icon, and VS Code's helping me out quite a bit here. Calendar month icon. So let's just swap that out, see what happens here. And you can see the difference in the icons now. So I've only added it, of course, to this bottom one. And let's do another here. Actually, I'll go ahead and do both the remaining ones. Left arrow icon. And I will change that to arrow icon left. Just kind of like a simpler icon. Instead of looking like a chevron, it looks like literally, arrow left icon. VS Code didn't help me out enough. It'll look literally just like a little arrow. So there we go. That should be everything that we need to get those icons in here. So you can see it's hard to tell the difference, but now they look like this down arrow over here. I'll show you the difference on this one. They used to be these chevrons. So that's that for the components. Now I've got the input props on here, and so there's two things going on. The popper is what opens when I expand this. The input is actually this component here. So a lot of components in MUI are, I call them compositional components. And what that means is, for example, DateTimePicker is composed of the popper that we just saw. It's also composed of this input, which we have this render input, and we're saying be a text field. We're saying that this is going to be a text field. So that's what this input portion is composed of, is a text field component. Now text fields are composed themselves of multiple other components, like a label, literally an input, and some other things. In this case, we've told it to, or by default, it has an icon. I think in the text field it's called something like end adorn icon or end adornment icon, or just end icon. I forget, but I have, of course, another post on text field altogether that has that icon in there. So anyway, input props. What we want to do here is I'm going to get the calendar icon here styled. I'm just going to make it a nice blue color. So to do that, notice the syntax here. There's always curly braces for any prop. Then input props is accepting an object. Inside of that object, it has one field, the SX field, which is going to be passed down as the SX prop. SX itself accepts an object. So this object is going to be the value, the styling props we want to add. In this case, it's actually going to be a little bit more complex because it's going to be a nested component. So there we go, MUI SVG icon dash root, and I'm going to pass in color blue, and let's take a look at that. There we go. So how did I know what nested selector here? Well, mostly because I did my research beforehand, but we can figure it out looking in here. So probably somewhere within this icon, here we have MUI SVG icon root. So you can see that that is living somewhere inside of this input. So now I can go and show you that this input, ultimately it's wrapped in, oh, that's the one above. Anyway, here we go. This text field, this input for the DateTimePicker, is this div right here, which has class MUI form control root. So the topmost compositional component in MUI of the text field is this form control. So anyway, just using the nested selector to have to select this SVG element way down inside of it. So there's that one. The popper, I've already got a little bit set up. I've just created a const, but it's actually empty right now. But anyway, it's the same thing where the popper prop accepts an object. Within that object, the object has a field of SX, and we're giving that field a value of popper SX. So anyway, let's go add some values to this popper SX. I have TypeScript enabled, so I had to import SX props, and yeah, let's take a break and actually mention that right now. So I had to import SX props. I also had to set my date to be either a date value or a null value for the state value here. And I've got a little example of if I'd have passed in a string version of a date instead of just like the current time. And then one other thing that I had to import is text field props. I had to import that to appease TypeScript. So anyway, let's add some popper SX values here. So I'm going to add quite a bit here. I'm going to target the paper component inside of the popper, and I'm going to target a class called calendar picker root, and quite a bit. I'm going to target something called private picker slide transition and picker's day, and an MUI tab in there. So quite a lot going on. So let's get into it. Oops, and you always start out with that and. In this case, it's got a space because I'm going to select a child inside of the popper. So here we go. I've got my border 1px solid black. And I've already dug into this styling some. So I'm going to kind of fly through what styling I'm adding. And let's just see, what I really care more about is that you know how to add the styling. I care that you know about popper props, and that we maybe explore some of these classes that are being applied by default in the DOM. Anyway, so you can see that border there, and it's got some padding and margin now. That didn't exist, so let's see if we can find, sometimes it can be hard to select poppers, but anyway, this one was behaving itself. So here we go, we've got, this is the root of popper, which is where SX props got applied to, so that's important to know. So I could have added, I didn't have to start with the nested selector, I could have added some kind of prop like background color here, perhaps, and that would have applied at that root level. So anyway, we saw this MUI paper root. There's a whole bunch more inside of here, though. There's that MUI calendar picker root that I mentioned. So let's actually target that next. And we can just give that some background color. And let's see. So there we go. So I had paper, which is a child of the root, but a parent of this calendar picker that I targeted just now. The paper has a little bit of padding, so that padding is what we can still see here with its own background color. It's still visibly showing the background color that we gave to the paper. So anyway, the background color I just added is on this MUI calendar picker. So yeah, there's a little bit of transition applied, and obviously we can see that here. So let's go in and target that. And actually, let me take a look at that class name again. Let's dig in here, because I don't. So there's a fade transition group. I think there's actually a slide transition. Here we go. I'll actually target that one. And then, yeah, I think that'll be the last child that we target here. And one handy thing is you can just go into your DevTools here and pull it right out. Slide transition root. Let me think about this, whether I want to actually target anything there. You know what, I think I'll just leave that one. You can see that as an example if you want. I'm going to actually go into the days here, see if I can just target one of them. So that's within that slide transition root. Okay, so we've got MUI picker day root, picker's day root, So let's go ahead and target that. And we always got to have our syntax correct in here. So let me see what okay. I think I'm actually going to target, we could probably target that picker's day root. I'm actually going to target this day with margin. It looks a little more specific to me, so I bet that we won't accidentally pick up or style a class that we were not intending to style. So I will add some color there, and let's say RGB of 229, 228, 226, who knows what that is. And then we'll add some background color. And let's see, oops, it's good to keep your single or double quotes consistent, but it doesn't really matter. And 153, so let's see what that did. Okay, interesting. Okay, there we go. So added a little bit of a darker blue color there. So pretty cool. So there we've wrapped up our styling of the date picker here, and there's still more things that we could dig into. You could style these labels here. They are little typography components, all kinds of things that you can style within these composed components, because there's just a lot going on. Anyway, I hope that this video was helpful, and please do consider subscribing. It's really motivating to me, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.